Hello, Tony here again. Well, we're here to look at another panel quickly. Just loading into the a quick flight into the sim here from Calais over to the UK. Probably fly up to London. May not make it all the way, but you know the usual drill. If you've watched my videos before, just a quick look at the panel so you get to have an idea of what it's all about. If we don't make it all the way, so be it. So we're just going to get the auto pop out, which if you haven't seen that video, go check out my video on the auto pop out. Oh, it didn't work. That happens sometimes. Haven't quite got to the bottom every time of why that is. Oh, it's doing it. Oh, I did it anyway. There we go. I didn't need to. Manually intervene, but you can see it's now left the pop-up out there after I pulled it up. But normally that would disappear and become automatic. You wouldn't even see it at all. The pop-outs have just popped out automatically onto my couple of touch screens that I've got set up. So let's have a look at that view. There we are. I think might change the time of day as well. Didn't think about what time of day it was, did we? Oh, it's nearly daytime, just a little early. We'll go a little earlier, just so we've got a little bit of daylight. There's the TBM panels. So they're G3000, so predominantly taken up by the screens. But you can see there was 4 pop-outs there if you were watching that pop-out process quickly. So the 4 screens being the main 2 G3000 screens for the PFD and the MFD, and then these 2 little touch controllers down here. You could probably get away with 1 actually, because with the buttons down the side you can control PFD, MFD, but it's handy to have 1 set up for one thing and 1 set up for something else. So they are 2 independent screens. They can be controlled independently on different menus. So I thought I'd include both in the TBM, seeing as they are both there in the model. And then most of the other things, the left panel is pretty much as per it is in the aircraft, other than the throttle quadrant, which I'll come on and talk to about a little bit. The right hand side panel is not so much, there's not much on it, to be honest. It's mainly just the 2 screens, but the autopilot's not perhaps ideally located of where it would be in the real cars. Normally it's above the G3000 MFD, but I just haven't got the space vertically on this monitor to fit them all in. I could have squeezed it in across the top, but then this would have to have been smaller, and so would have the small touchscreen. Probably had to have been a little bit smaller as well overall, and they just wouldn't have looked as realistic in size. And I prefer to see the information, you know, because the EIS strip is down the side of here of the MFD and whatnot. It was just it just made more sense to put it down the bottom. That's not to say they couldn't be resized and the autopilot squeezed in above the top, or maybe this repositioned somewhere else. If you didn't want 2 of these, you could maybe lower this a little bit, but then it wouldn't be in line with where this one is. And so there was all those things I had to contend with, trying to, you know, do a dual panel, make things marry up and whatnot. So this is my best compromise, if you want to call it that, of where we are. So we've got a couple of little pop-up panels. I've got my usual compass, which if you've seen them on any of my videos, you've seen 1,000 times already. But on this one, we've got a little, well, we've got the overhead panel in the TBM. Most of the electrical controls, certainly the lights and the main electrical power on-off generators, whatnot, and the starter and ignition related items are on this overhead panel. So this is the overhead panel. Again, I didn't really have room for it with it being overhead. I might eventually, well, not might, I think I plan eventually to have an overhead monitor, a touch monitor, which I don't have currently. So some of these aircraft that have controls, switches, whatnot, overhead, which is not that many. GA, depending on which aircraft you fly. Probably the more complex GAs have them. Some of the higher wings, like the Kodiak and the Caravan, have fuel selectors overhead. maybe the odd light. But this TBM has a control panel, as does the Britain Norman Islander. That has an overhead panel strip that runs across the sort of top of the windshield. So for those aircraft, it would be really useful to have a monitor mounted overhead to simulate that location, and so those could be dragged up onto that monitor and made not the way I make these instruments. You can select whether or not it's a show hide type instrument, as in this little icon, or it's not. So if you don't tick that user property, then it doesn't generate this little plus symbol in the corner. It just basically shows it all the time as a normal instrument would be. But for those options where on some of those panels where I just haven't got the space for them, or I use them so infrequently where I get them to pop up, you've probably seen that on my Caravan and panels where I have a switch panel on the left hand side, because that's where it is in the real craft. So I'll try and put it in the the similar location orientation to where it would be in the real craft. So this one I've got popping down from the top, because obviously it's meant to be in the overhead, so it's kind of simulating the fact that it's up there in the overhead. And then I'll turn it off when I'm not using it, because it's not used that frequently, just probably during start up and shut down, and occasionally to pop it up and change maybe the setting of one of your lights or something, but that's about it. So while it's up, we might as well go ahead and switch on the main power. Probably before we get all started up and everything, I should also show you the little crash bar there. So there's a little animation on the crash bar there. See when these switches are on, if they're on at any point, you can just activate the crash bar and it will turn the switches off and bring the crash bar down. It's a similar feature to what I've got on my 414 panels, in fact, which I haven't shown yet, but I plan to. So don't need the generator on just yet. Let's clear that caution. We'll have the nav light on, I think, as we're just getting to start. We don't need a taxi light on just yet. All these, you see, these light switches are working. They work and animate in the sim too. It was a bit of a job to get all of them working, but a little bit of jiggery pokery on my part enabled that to function. Same with the fuel selector. That's not something that you can just use a standard event for. It just won't work. Why they didn't provide one for it, I do not know. So again, lots of jiggery pokery required to get the fuel selector to work, the automatic. So when you click on auto, you'll see the annunciations change there on the PFD, and then when you flick back to manual, it will warn you that auto select is in fact off. So we'll leave it switched on. And what that does, for those that don't know, in the TBM it's a little different to your normal low wing aircraft, where you would normally have to manually switch tanks with a fuel selector, similar to what you see here in the bottom right hand corner. Except for when you're in this auto mode, the TBM has an automatic, meaning auto, means of switching between the tanks, and it's dependent on an algorithm of essentially what mode of flight you're in and what the state of the fuel is in the tanks, etc. It's detailed in the POH, but the sim has it modelled. So it's just a case of turning that auto on, and then this will automatically toggle between left and right periodically, depending on that mode and state of flight that you happen to be in at that time. So that's a nice little feature. You not have to worry about the fuel tanks having a fuel imbalance or running out of fuel because you forgot to swap the fuel tanks over, which is always something that can be a pain to do. So there you can see now, I've turned the map on where we are. We're sitting at Calais, just across the channel there from Dover. As you can probably just see the Dover VOR there. So we're going to probably head over to Dover and then head up somewhat into England. I don't know how far we'll get, whether or not get as far as London or not, but we'll just have a little play with the panel and the aircraft, and I'll end the video and continue the flight and land somewhere. So without further ado, I guess we ought to at least get ourselves configured. We'll have that autopilot switch on. We'll be needing that in a little bit. we've got the fuel selector already on auto. The auxiliary bypass is, I think we'll have that on auto. The ignition is on auto, that's fine. Start is ready. The nav light is on. Right, don't need that overhead just for this minute. The alternate static is just a pop it out there, you see, on the right hand side panel. That's modelled. The autopilot controller you've seen in Kodiak Caravan, it's the same autopilot controller. I think I had to make a little tweak here or there for it to work with the TBM, so it carries on working with the other aircraft. But yeah, that's all operational as normal. The bezels for the touches I don't think you've seen before. I may have shown them on my channel for the Vision Jet for X-Plane, although they're not actually overlays, they've got actual graphics within the middle of them, based on that aircraft that's in X-Plane. So depending on what happens with the Vision Jet that's being developed for Microsoft Flight Sim, I might have to either adapt them or just use these ones, these overlay ones probably, and pop them out from the sim if they've got a good representation of the G3000 system modelled for that aircraft. But we don't know what that's going to be yet, so only time will tell when that aircraft gets released. But that will be an interesting, because I've already got a nice panel for the Vision Jet already, which will probably need a little bit of modification, but it's a good base to start with. So there's not, as I said, there's not much on that right hand side panel. The overhead I showed, the fuel selector, the alternate static, the autopilot, the touchscreen, and the G3000 control. And then when we flip over to the left hand panel, which because there's a little bit more on there, we can make that a little bit bigger just so we can have a closer look at it. It's laid out pretty much like the aircraft itself, with a few minor tweaks here and there. The barrow knob is normally up next to the autopilot, which would have been up high, so you know, it was a compromise. Did I put it down there with the autopilot? I suppose I could have. I had a bit of spare real estate up here, so I decided to put it up there. So that was one of the compromises. The throttle quadrant, of course, wouldn't be up on the panel like that. I've got that, and I modelled this throttle quadrant simply because the throttle lever on the TDM is a little unique. As anyone that flies the TBM probably already knows, it's a little tricky to set up with hardware. I don't have my throttle quadrant that I really want set up properly and correctly yet. So as an interim, I've been using this this little touch throttle quadrant, which enables me to select low idle, high idle, taxi, the different modes, and cut off as well, and a little animation between them, so I can essentially select up the different modes, and it will control the sim aircraft. Let's see if we can have a look at that. There we go. So there's what we've got in the sim, and here's what we got on the touch screen. So as I touch the low, you see low, high, taxi, back to high, low, cut off. So yeah, that's gives me that little bit of level of control over it's more for the startup and the shutdown than anything else. During normal flight, you just be on that left hand side of the H, if you like, and then you can just control it. I'm actually with a normal throttle there. I have included a little slider on the touch control. You see we've even got reverse there as well. Just a way of giving you reverse as well for landing. So let's just go back to cut off before we start up. Shouldn't really be playing that. It does actually say in the POH, don't try and move the lever when the engine's not running because you haven't got oil flow and whatnot. But this is only a simulation, so we can have a little play. So yeah, there's the throttle quadrant, which is a little done, but everything else is pretty much maybe not in 100% the position, but most of the switch panels are there. They tend to be below the display, as you can probably see there in the sim. Another switch panel there, CB light, and the other one to the right there, and then you've got the standby instrument, which I've got slightly to the side there, and the master caution is on the other side. So yeah, a little bit of compromise. So that was mainly to do with the vertical height of the panel. The TBM panel is quite deep in that regard, so we've ended up with what we've got. But yeah, I'm quite happy with it. It's very nice to fly. I don't need to use the mouse, which was the most important thing, which was one of the reasons for doing the throttle quadrant. And I used the pop-out tool, as you saw at the beginning, the pop-out panel manager, which has got the great touch feature added to it now, so you can use your actual finger to use the touch controls of these actual touchscreen controllers. Why that's not part of the sim yet, you'd have to ask Microsoft and Asobo that, but it seems that after 2 years of the sim being out, that really should be a feature by now, but it's not. So we have to make do with the tools that we have at our disposal, and Microsoft Pop-Out Manager is a great tool. The touch is a nice added benefit, but having the ability to pop out all those pop-outs automatically, especially on this one, which is 4 panels worth or 4 pop-outs worth, and having to locate and size them each time, yeah, it doesn't make it as enjoyable to fly and set up. And of course, if you have a problem, as sometimes we all do with a sim, with a crash now and again or whatever, then you have to go through that process again. So yeah, having it all sort of saved to a profile and just being able to get it to do it, and it does it. It didn't do it this time, you saw in the video, but generally most of the time it does it automatically when you load the plane. They're just ready to go in the right locations is a joy. Again, should be default in the sim. Should that feature should be built in once you've selected a position of a pop out and left it there, and you close it off. When you come back to it, it should just come back to its old location where it was left before. It seems to me like a fundamental thing, but anyhow, we make do. So I guess what we should do is get underway. Now we've had a good look at the panels, and we'll you can see some of them in operation. So I think we've got the lights on already, so I think we'll put the overhead on. What have we got here at the moment? Just having a look at the warnings and cautions. Oil pressure, that's understandable. Park brake, oil boost pump on. Auxiliary boost pump on. Whatever. In auto, yeah, okay. We're just trying to get fuel pressure because the engine's not running. Main generator's not on, low voltage, and the bleed is off. Yeah, the bleed is off at the moment. Right, so let's get the engine running, and then hopefully some of these will clear. Well, not hopefully, they will clear, he says. Let's start. Flick the starter, so we've got the starter annunciator on. Just watching the NG here. Looking for 14%. There we go. Flick that up to low idle. Should get that starter flick off when we're up around the 50 odd percent. 54 I think it is on this plane, is it? 52? There we go. And we have a successful start. So it says auxiliary boost pump on. That's because we're still in low idle. We'll go up to high idle now. Yep, we've got good fuel pressure. Temperatures and pressures are looking okay. Across to taxi. We'll switch the generator on. We'll have the taxi light on now because we're about to taxi out. Got the autopilot already on. Didn't show you the shift button there, but that's essentially just a manual version of turning the... You see the fuel selector there in the bottom right corner? You can just manually toggle it with a button to change the sequence if you prefer to shift from the right or the left, or you can go back to manual and then shift it over, so that basically you can, you know, force yourself to be on the left tank the whole time if that happened to have a bit more fuel in it. But you can see now the auto select caution has come up, so we're going to put that back on to make that go away. Let's go to right here. Okay, we'll leave that switch panel up for the moment. We'll turn our pitot left on and our pitot right on and our bleed, and then we've only got parking brake left. Good. So, well, we might as well turn the parking brake off. We'll check that throttle quadrant's okay. Now, hopefully I can find my way to the runway. It shouldn't be too difficult at Calais, but famous last words. We'll get ourselves out of here and across the channel. Looks like that wing sock is not going in the direction that I thought. So we'll just do a little tour of the ramp here. My mistake. Wasn't sure where it was actually. So if you were familiar with an airfield, you'd know where it was, or you'd have a listen to the ATIS. Just a quick and dirty flight today. So we will actually tune while we're still here on the ramp. What this ground vehicle doing? We will actually, it's a bit difficult to taxi and do this at the same time. We'll actually tune, no, that's not what I wanted. You can see you can select if you want to control the PFD, the MFD, with the little buttons on the side of the touch controller, and they're obviously knobster enabled, so you can, the big knob and the small knob have a function. I think the small knob is the map zoom. So you can see that's zooming the little PFD inset map, because I'm set to PFD. If I select MFD, you see that little knob now controls the zoom on the large map, the MFD map. I want to go left here this time, sorry about that. Do a little tour of Calais there, Calais airport. So what I actually wanted to do was nearest, because I don't actually know the frequency, and hopefully the Dover, there it is, Dover VOR 114. We just hit that, we'll say we want to be active on nav 1, and bam, there it is. So it's 25.5 nautical miles away, which sounds about right. This is the point at which the English Channel narrows the most. This is where the ferries travel. I say all the ferries, the vast majority of the ferries that travel between England and France. Although there is a tunnel now, they've had a tunnel for several years now. That runs between Folkestone on the English side and I don't think it's actually Calais, it's outside of Calais, isn't it? I can't remember the name of the place now, but somewhere close to Calais. I mean, I guess you could say Folkestone's close to Dover, so yeah. Guess you have to start digging a little bit early if you want to get down that deep under the water before you're actually right on the coast. Right. So yeah, that's why predominantly the ferries are travelling between this bit, because it's the narrowest section, so the shortest stretch of water. And we are going to hop across in this TBM like so quickly. Well, make sure we've got takeoff flaps set. The barrow is set. We'll set out an altitude of, I don't know, we're not going to do nothing too mad. 8,000 feet maybe. Don't want to go too high, because there'll be time to come down again. Sync that heading up with the runway 06. Okay, and then the VOR, where have we got an alignment? The VOR, that's a from. Oh, there we go. So something like 300. So let's have our strobe on. We should have had that already on for the runway. And we'll put our landing light on, and we'll put it on pulse as well. We'll not worry about that too much. We'll leave them on. And the autopilot is on. Turn that off, and we're ready to go. Let's get out of here. And rotate. Gear up. And out over the channel we go. So just honing in on the VOR now. Already see the land. Won't be long. I think I can just about make out the white cliffs actually of Dover. It's a famous famous part of the English coastline. In fact, I think what we might do is we just lower that altitude a little bit. We don't want to get too high, so we just have a little view of that while we're coming over the channel. Not get too fast either. We'll just have a quick look at the coastline of England, and I think we'll call it a day. So you can see with these touch screens how nice they are. You can you just touch the different screens, and you can even set up a half split one if you want to. Oops. There's a half split one, and then the large knob controls which of the two halves you can control, and then you can select the other one and say, I don't know, show weather on there or traffic if you want to show something different, or even, I'll say it. No, you can't. That's obviously on here, the flight plan. Charts. Oh yeah, charts. You could put charts up there as well if you had charts. So there you go. Quite capable. And this is the G3000 mod from Working Title I have installed. So it may look a little different to the default TBM if you don't have the G3000 mod, but they are working on an update, because this was only I don't know how long it took them, but this mod obviously improves quite a lot over the default. But they're working, I know, on enhancing the G3000 even further. Our working title, so it should get even better. Anticipating that, and it should have more the same sort of functionality that we see in the G1000 NXI and kind of take for granted now. So hopefully we'll get to see that on the G3000. Oh, there's a point of interest. I've got point of interest turned on. I think that was from a flight the other day. I don't normally have them turned on. But there you go, you can see the in fact, let's turn the autopilot off and just have a little look at that ourselves. Maybe Dover Castle that's pointing out, I think, and there you see just beyond that the white cliffs quite clearly there. The white cliffs of Dover. So that is my TBM panels. Not much more to say really. They're all the functions. The switches were a bit of a drama to get them all working. Some of them are not straightforward. Even like silly little things like pitot heats and stuff. You have to dig and find the correct ones to get them sort of split into two, and the auto select and the lights in the overhead were required a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of playing around to get those working. But yeah, I'm hoping with Sim Update 10 now they've released some of the restrictions on some of the files in the mods that sorry, in the Microsoft planes, that we will see some improvements in some of the mods, and hopefully some of these features can be incorporated into LVARs and whatnot, and make it a little bit easier for panel integrators like myself to come up with panels and make it a little bit easier without having to resort to black magic to get it to work. Anyway, they are the TBM panels. Thanks for watching. I should have some more panel showcases coming up. I've got quite a few panels that I've not got around to doing videos for, including the 414. I've showed a few tidbits of that, pictures and whatnot, in various places, but I do plan to do a video of that one, and I think there's a couple of other panels as well that I've done and haven't shown yet on this channel, so I plan to do those, and then I think we'll get into some tutorials. I've got a few little notes about some tutorials that I think I might like to do, so we'll probably get into them as well, and who knows where that will take us. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye.